A scientist once built a perfect world. Unlimited food, unlimited water, no predators, no disease, no hunger, no cold, no danger of any kind. It was paradise, engineered down to the last detail. And within a few years, every single inhabitant was dead. They didn't starve. Nothing hunted them. No sickness swept through. They died for a reason far more disturbing. A reason that might be a quiet warning about us. In July of 1968, an American scientist named John Calhoun began one of the strangest experiments in the history of psychology. He worked at the National Institute of Mental Health, and he was chasing a question that had haunted him for years. And the question wasn't really about animals. It was about people. He once wrote a single line that tells you exactly what he was doing. "I shall largely speak of mice, but my thoughts are on man." So he built them a heaven, a large metal enclosure, climate-controlled, stocked with endless food, water, and nesting material. No cats, no hawks, no disease. The only thing the mice inside could ever run out of was space. He called it Universe 25 because the first 24 times he tried this, something always went wrong before the end. This time, he was determined to see it all the way through. He started with just 8 mice, 4 males, 4 females. And at first, it was everything you'd expect from paradise. The mice thrived. With nothing to threaten them and everything they could ever need, they bred, and bred fast. The population doubled roughly every 2 months. Generation after generation, the numbers climbed. If you had looked inside Universe 25 during that first year, you would have seen a booming, growing little society. And you would have drawn the obvious conclusion: give a population everything, remove all suffering, and life flourishes. You would have been completely wrong, because around day 560, with the population peaking at about 2,200 mice, something began to break. And it did not break the way anyone expected. Remember, this enclosure was built to hold nearly 3,840 mice. They never came close to running out of room. They never ran out of food. By every physical measure, paradise was still fully intact. And yet the society inside it started to rot from within. Here's what Calhoun realized. There was plenty of physical space, but there were not enough social roles to go around. Too many mice, all competing to be someone, to hold territory, to matter. And the males who couldn't carve out a place didn't simply back down and accept it. They snapped. Violence erupted. Sudden, random, pointless attacks, aimed at other males, at females, even at the young. The normal rules that had always governed mouse society just stopped applying. The females didn't escape it either. Overwhelmed and stressed in the chaos, mothers began to neglect their pups. Some abandoned them entirely. Some turned on their own young and attacked them. Infant deaths skyrocketed. And the pups that did survive were being born into pure disorder, with no example anywhere of how a healthy society was supposed to function. Calhoun had a name for this collapse, a term he had coined years before: the behavioral sink. The point where overcrowding stops being a physical problem and becomes a psychological one, where the mind breaks long before the body does. But the strangest thing of all wasn't the violence. It was a group of mice who did the exact opposite of fighting. And they are the part of this story that people never forget. Among the generation born into the breakdown, a new kind of mouse appeared. They withdrew. Completely. They never fought. They never courted a mate. They never competed for anything at all. They simply stepped out of society, as if they had quietly resigned from life itself. They spent their days doing only 3 things, on a loop: eating, sleeping, and grooming themselves, over and over and over. And because they never fought, they carried no scars, no wounds. They were sleek, clean, physically flawless. Calhoun gave them an unsettling name. He called them the beautiful ones. But their beauty was hollow. They were alive, and yet completely empty. incapable of connection, incapable of mating, incapable of any real social behavior at all. They had everything a body needs and nothing a mind needs. In a very real sense, the society inside them had already died, long before their bodies ever would. And with the beautiful ones checked out, and stressed mothers no longer raising healthy young, the births slowed, and then almost completely stopped. The last conception came around day 920. After that, Universe 25 had no future left in it. The population began to fall, from over 2,000 down to hundreds, then to just over 100 survivors, sliding steadily towards zero. And here is the single most chilling part of the entire experiment. Even when the crowding was gone, even when there was suddenly more than enough space, more than enough food, and every resource a mouse could possibly want, the survivors could not recover. They had been so deformed by the collapse that they had lost the ability to be social at all. They couldn't mate. They couldn't raise young. They couldn't rebuild what had been lost. Paradise didn't end in famine, or war, or some sudden disaster. It ended in apathy, in withdrawal, in a slow, silent extinction. Calhoun had a grim phrase for it. He called it death squared, a second kind of death, a spiritual one, that arrived long before the body finally gave out. And now you understand why he kept insisting his thoughts were really on man. Calhoun believed Universe 25 was a preview, a warning about what might happen to dense human societies when the struggle for survival disappears, when every need is instantly met, and when there are far more people than there are meaningful roles for them to fill. He looked at his dying mouse utopia, and he saw crowded cities, fraying social bonds, and people quietly opting out of the whole game. And it is genuinely hard not to feel a small chill of recognition, the withdrawal, the endless self-maintenance, the beautiful ones who perfect themselves and connect with no one. But, and this matters far more than almost anyone admits, this is exactly where the story usually stops. And it shouldn't, because in the decades since, scientists have pushed back hard on the doomsday reading of Universe 25. And the truth turns out to be more complicated than the creepy version you've probably heard. For one thing, humans are not mice. We have culture, language, technology, and the ability to completely reinvent how we live. You cannot simply scale a mouse pen up to the size of a human city and assume you'll get the same ending. On top of that, many researchers now argue that the real villain in Universe 25 was never crowding at all. It was the collapse of social structure, the breakdown of roles and order, not raw density by itself. Calhoun's mice didn't fail just because there were a lot of them. They failed because their society lost its shape. And here's the part that almost nobody mentions. Calhoun himself was far more hopeful than the prophets of doom who used his work. He did not believe humanity was destined to repeat the fate of his mice. He argued that as our physical space shrinks, we can expand a completely different kind of space, what he called conceptual space, the world of ideas, of creativity, of connection and meaning. For the mice, there was no escape from the behavioral sink. For us, he believed, there could be. So Universe 25 isn't really a prophecy of our extinction. It's a mirror, and it leaves us holding one genuinely unsettling question. When every need is met and every struggle is removed, what is it that gives a mind a reason to stay connected to others? Calhoun's mice never found an answer. We still have time to. If your brain just lit up with 100 questions, that is exactly what this channel is for. Subscribe and stick around, because next time, we're proving something that sounds impossible. Every single night, in the final moments before you fall asleep, your brain quietly begins to hallucinate, and you never even notice.